Hi, today I would like to talk with you about using children's literature in math. First, what is math? Math is the study of numbers, shapes, and patterns. A 2005 MathCats writing contest on what is math produced these reflections. From a first grade teacher, math is you, math is me, math is everything we see. Infinity beyond our wildest dream, math encompasses all extremes. Before we begin the presentation, what do you already know about the benefits of incorporating children's literature into math? If you could please fill out this entrance ticket that I have for you, and then we can talk about what are some things you already know about incorporating children's literature into math. Okay, now that you've done that activity, let's talk about the benefits of using children's literature in our math lessons. According to research, using children's literature in math lessons can enhance learning in many ways. It can help build an intangible perception of math skills through illustrations, as well as help students build problem solving skills. In addition to that, children's literature can provide meaningful context, review a mathematical concept, help promote number sense, model an interesting problem, explain a math concept, promote critical thinking, or increase the level of interest. Math becomes more interesting when a child can make a math connection in a story. When children are reading or listening to a book, they learn to recognize that math is used all around them. They begin to use their prior knowledge to connect math to the outside world. Literature naturally brings a more complex mode of communication to mathematical instruction because it presents mathematical concepts in words rather than in numbers. Many of the teachers report that showed an increased comfort level in talking about their understanding of math concepts when using a children's literature book. Many children have math anxiety. Math anxiety is defined as a persistent fear, tension, apprehension related to situations that require math. In one study of 154 first and second graders, 50% of the students reported feeling medium to high level of math anxiety. If I was to ask you, growing up or even now, how many of you have fear towards math? Many of you may raise your hand and say, yes, me. But when I ask you about how you feel towards reading, you may have a fond memory of reading a children's book that was your favorite, or you still love to read them today. Why not bring that fondness to math? By incorporating reading and math together, this would allow children to have a familiarity, a sense of comfort, and an ease of anxiety. Math guru Marilyn Burns writes, incorporating a beloved element of literacy instruction, such as a picture book, read aloud into a math lesson, helps bring some of the warm and fuzzy feeling teachers and students have about reading to bear during math time. Many teachers will unconsciously bring a more relaxed effect to these lessons. For some students, listening to a story at the start of a math lesson can significantly change whether they approach math lessons with trepidation or excitement and an open mind. How do we then help to build confidence in math? We can praise students for their effort, not on whether or not they got the answer right, but on the job that they did. Take time to listen how a student got an answer for a math problem or what strategy they used to solve a problem. Set math goals that are reviewed by you and the student to keep the student on track to accomplish their goals. Be careful with what you say about math, or if it wasn't your math wasn't your favorite subject in school. Students hear that and internalize and think that math is not their favorite subject either. Give open-ended problems when there is not one right answer to solve the problems or one strategy to use. This will help the student understand that there are many ways to solve a math problem. One way to do this is dealing with math comprehension. Take the time to make sure that students understand what they are doing. What they are doing can help math skills immensely. Jumping directly into solving problems can lead to frustration and confusion. Work on problems with students before assigning some independent work. This gives the student a chance to absorb what they are learning. Practice makes perfect. Even in maths, So encourage students to complete extra problems so they fully understand the math concept being presented. Some students have a harder time than others with understanding math word problems. You can read these problems out loud or even draw the problems out. Hearing the problem or being able to visualize it can give the student the help that they need to improve their math comprehension. So now you'd like to decide, okay, how am I going to use a math book a children's literature book in my math lesson? There are different tiers of books. First, we have tier one. This is the fundamental math picture book. Math content is the primary purpose of these books. These books are generally only read with the specific purpose of learning math content. Then we have tier two, which is an embedded math picture book. These are the books in which the plot has deliberate connections to math, but the story stands on its own as well. Or tier three is a connected math picture book. These books do not have a connection to math, but the teacher creates the connections with the think aloud and the class discussions that they will have. So how do you evaluate a children's literature book for math lessons? What you need to look for is accuracy. Is the math content correct? And does it address the content needs based on the standards that you're trying to teach? Is there a visual and verbal appeal? Does the book have high quality art and illustrations that support the content of the book rather than distract from it? Connections. Does the book represent itself in the real world? Can students make connections to the book and pictures? Audience. Will the book appeal to more than one level? Can the book be presented in a new way of thinking that could be interesting? Wow factor. Does the book capture the imagination and inspire students? Representation and inclusion. Does the book include cultural representation, gender depictions, and appeal, and the inclusion of minority groups? Although it may seem odd to be reading during math time, whenever we can integrate children's literature into our math block, it will only enhance our math lessons. These are just a few of the benefits of math read-alouds. Kids of all ages love good stories. Even older students thrive with read-alouds. Whenever it's possible to cross-connect subject areas for deeper growth and understanding will only help enhance the student's learning. So using the math read-aloud handout, I'd like you to choose a book, evaluate the book to see how you can apply the book to your math lesson. By doing this activity, teachers can walk away from my presentation with the book and a read-aloud math lesson plan to incorporate into their next math lesson. So now when planning for your read-aloud, here's a few things to consider. First of all, the primary math objective for the read-aloud. What one math skill or strategy do you want to introduce, review, or reinforce? Having strategic pauses, which will allow you to model your own thinking, or pause for a turn and talk discussion about a particular thing happening in the story. What specific vocabulary do you want to introduce, or maybe reinforce, or maybe add that specific vocabulary to your math word wall? And extending conversations. What questions will you ask, both open and closed-ended, that relates to the purpose of the read aloud? After the read aloud, there are some activities that you could do. You could have what are called grand conversations. These are student-driven conversations that help students process and own the content learning that is embedded in the read aloud. What these grand conversations do is that they promote student ownership. They're student-led, not teacher-led. They're used for clarification. They're used for comprehension. And they have a deeper understanding of content being presented. You can also set up some partner work and have some small group activities. This would be a follow-up from a lesson from the book used to reinforce the concept that was presented or for even enrichment. Or you can have some independent activities with either a worksheet or an independent activity for students to work on their own. As these are happening, you're walking around the room to assess what students may still need some more help on a concept that they're not understanding. Also, by doing these meaningful tasks, This would allow the students to use higher ordering thinking skills. It would be a productive struggle and stretch themselves to allow the students to be thinking on their own. It would allow them to discover math concepts on their own. And it would allow them to communicate their own math thought process versus you having to help them make those connections. Another thing that you can do is group work. Research shows that students learn 50% more math when they're working in a group. It helps students to comprehend problems together. It allows them to generate some new ideas. And it helps them to learn by applying what they know. Many students um, um, Many students want to ask questions but may be nervous to ask the teacher the question, but feel very comfortable asking their friends or their group that they're working with the question. So how to continue the learning after the reading? So there are math talks. Math talks is an activity designed to use multiple strategies and provide opportunities for students to reason about the relationship in the numbers and make connections in mathematics and concepts from the book being presented. Math rights. Students express and articulate their thinking and understanding of a math problem and concepts. And there's our math centers. Students are making connections from the book through activities in each lesson. A listening station could be set up for students to hear the story again or to be able to ask some questions during a math center. Now, I will be handing out a list of books that would allow you to look at that would go over a math concept that you are trying to present. So this is a takeaway for you. And also here is the exit ticket. This is a tool I will use to see the effectiveness of the presentation and any outstanding questions that you may have. If you could write down what did you learn and what questions that you have from today. Thank you for coming to view my presentation.